Working at STARS has really provided nurses and myself an opportunity to, advance our skill set and help the patients and families, providing that expanded scope of practice. I think one of the reasons many people come to STARS is for the education and that ongoing support and education from our physician group as well. So they'll come and spend time with us and make sure that we're up to date in the latest research and best practice. So it's certainly a privilege to work at STARS, in that, we really value the education for our nurses and, helping them to advance their practice and, referring to best practice and research in our pre-hospital environment. The SRNA certainly allows nurses in Saskatchewan to expand beyond their, traditional, I would say, legacy sort of roles. And so they're not really, there's no list, there's no defined roles of nurses. Certainly in our environment, which is pre-hospital and emergency care, your skill set is expanded. We work closely with a group of physicians as well as a team of paramedic and nurse on every call. So although we have access to physicians for oversight and, to run things by, the nurses really what you're providing, the care you provide is expanded, and certainly it allows us to provide care in rural and remote areas where there isn't physicians or nurse practitioners, and so we're able to expand our role, in terms of advanced airway management, ventilators, a large amount of critical care medications. And really it just comes down to critical care decision making and using best practice in our scope. A good friend of mine who moved over to STARS, her name was Cindy Seidel, she approached me about coming out to STARS, and I have to say I was uncertain. I didn't know a lot about STARS or what they did, but I kind of trusted her and her professional opinion of the organization, and I knew that she wouldn't lead me astray. So I took a job as the clinical operations manager at STARS Saskatoon. So I started that in the fall of 2012. And it was certainly a change for me, having come from the hospital emergency department. Although it was relatively uncontrolled in Emerge, your setting is the same. It's always the same, right? You're in a hospital, you have a lot of resources. So when I ended up at STARS, it was certainly a change, responding to scenes of an accident and working with a whole new group of individuals, paramedics, nurses, physicians, as well as, our fundraising and foundation team, to work for a nonprofit organization was certainly something that I hadn't considered, but certainly aligned well with my values, being from a small town. When we look to advance our scope at STARS, we really look to what's the missing link. What are we missing? What do people need? Is it chest tubes? Is it arterial lines? How do we provide that care to individuals in need? So we kind of look to see, okay, what are the outcomes of patients and what could have made a difference? And so one of the things that we did implement was carrying 4 units of O-negative blood. So we knew there was a need to have blood in rural and remote areas, and so we'll fly that out. And so for those patients who are in need of a blood transfusion, we're able to provide that. So STARS really affords us the opportunity to advance our skills and work outside our traditional roles in the hospital. Whether it be in a car accident or having a medical emergency, somewhere rural or remote, the nurses can go out and provide that care, which they traditionally wouldn't provide in hospitals, because you have all your support staff as well as, respiratory therapists and physicians, and you have someone to do all your labs and ECGs in the hospital. So it certainly pushes the boundaries of your comfort zone as a nurse, to be out there and helping patients who are trapped in a vehicle, or someone who has had an unfortunate incident somewhere, like I said, remote or rurally. And I think it's so important in Saskatchewan because we're spread out over a large area and we don't have access to some of the resources that clients would in the city. So you wouldn't have that timely access. So we take that kind of critical care out to the remote and rural areas. One of the best decisions I ever made was listening to my friend Cindy, who said, you should really come out to STARS, and it's a great organization. And it has been. It's been such an amazing experience since I started in 2012, and I've just met some of the most amazing people. You know, they're some of the brightest and most brilliant, and STARS gives us the opportunity to just really spread our wings, and very rewarding, and certainly has pushed the envelope for for nursing. And I think it's really just about the patient. So even though I'm doing it on a grander scale, it really just comes down to just taking care of patients.